There's roughly 90,000 electric vehicles on the road now, and it's rapidly taking off. Yeah, so the uptake is really happening quite fast, and so there's a lot of challenges with building that public network and making sure there's high-powered chargers available, really.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Hey folks, greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain. And today, fantastic to be sitting down with Peter Allington of Singer Electric to talk about, I guess, electrifying transport in New Zealand and particularly delving in with some focus on ferries, which is a really interesting area because we've had a little bit of a chat in the past around boats and there's some real challenges and hence why we see the likes of Hamilton Jet doing a hybrid vehicle. So this is going to be a great topic. So thank you for joining us, Peter.
Thanks, Paul.
Lots and lots that we could talk about, but maybe you can just a sort of a look back. You're with Singer Electric. Tell us about this company. This is a New Zealand company, been around for how many decades?
We've been around for 7 decades. Yeah, so 70 years. Roughly around a decade in the electric vehicle space.
Yep.
So we're just working with clients to really electrify their fleet and upgrade their infrastructure.
And so you're very much on the technology that allows them to power that fleet and get their vehicles charged and so on, and putting that technology together. That's what you've mostly been focused on.
Yeah, we've partnered with ABB, who are a global leading technology company. They provide our smart chargers and equipment, and we're working with them to really get at the cutting edge of the technology available.
Fantastic. And so, it's really has been an interesting and, in recent times, a reasonably fast moving, journey. I think in the earlier days we were talking about electric vehicles, it was such a, a little sort of tiny, niche thing, and $150,000 plus Teslas and so on. There weren't it wasn't a particularly probably accessible area, necessarily. So you had the Teslas at one end, other end was sort of your Japanese import sort of second-hand EVs, predominantly the Nissan Leaf, right, and all the sort of complexities then that came with that. So the ones coming in from Japan needing sort of a Chatamo charger. And then it was, well, what standards are we going to land on as sort of we've moved through things with, what's BMW doing versus what's Tesla doing and so on. And so, quite a few, complexities and challenges. But of course, now we've got built out a pretty capable sort of charging network around the country in terms of public chargers for private vehicles. But of course, from a business perspective, for those that are sort of building up their fleets, it's not necessarily as simple for families, right? Because there's a broad range of needs to cater to. In some cases, it is just a company car that does a few Ks a day and so on, and that sort of stuff is probably at the reasonably easy end to sort of cater to. But then you've got all sorts of other commercial vehicles and use cases, and then there's the broader transport world where we're going to delve into on the ferries. What can you tell us around the sort of trends that you've seen? You've been in this field yourself with Singer for the best part of a decade. What are sort of the things that jump out to you?
There's roughly 90,000 electric vehicles on the road now, and that's increasing 6% at the moment year on year. I think it's doubled, within the last 18 months, that number, so it's rapidly taking off. Yeah, so the uptake is really happening quite fast, and so there's a lot of challenges with building that public network and making sure there's high-powered chargers available, really.
And so, we looked at the first chargers that were coming through. They weren't as high powered, and of course, for me, I can charge at home overnight. In a small business at the moment, we're probably there's a sort of challenges. What's the right thing to do? businesses move around premises and so on. So where's the best place to charge? We're EV only firm now. What are you seeing in terms of the trends as to what businesses do? Are we seeing landlords provide the charging infrastructure? Is it more the businesses themselves who that's part of what they do as part of moving into new premises that they're putting in the charging infrastructure, or is it a bit of a variety?
It's a bit of a variety, really. It's so unique every case. So it's really about working with the client and the stakeholders to ensure that they get the right size charger or the right equipment and upgrade where they need to, really, and whether that's also within the business or at home or how they do that.
And what's the scale? What are the biggest sort of bunches of chargers and so on? And because it's pretty pricey to put in a really high speed charger, and we've seen ChargeNet and the like, and partly through sort of government funding, put in these sort of 300 kilowatt. I think they call their ones sort of hyperchargers, and
Yes.
Tesla have been putting in their various sort of generations of chargers, which are getting better and faster, and I think that the latest iterations, you may be avoiding some of the past issues where you're charging, but there's somebody charging next to you, so the amount of juice drop or the peak possibility sort of drops in half. Those sorts of things are are starting to be addressed, but it's a pretty expensive endeavour to get everything in place, and quite time consuming to get the power fed.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so the standard size charge is around 7 kilowatts, just for the domestic or.
Yep, I think that's probably what I've got at home.
Yep. And so, they're relatively inexpensive, but then the higher powered, they do get a lot more, and there's a lot more complex challenges around that too, with load management, making sure the capacity doesn't be exceeded, so you don't blow any fuses and whatnot. So, it's a real challenge to work out what the best solution is for each client.
And this sort of journey to electrify, and you said it had been growing very rapidly. Especially, I guess we had that period over the last 18 months where consumers and businesses had that sort of an incentive. They're getting some nice rebates back on their vehicles. Do you see that having dropped off? That's not going to put a stop to things, but I guess it just impacts the pace to a degree. Do you have a feeling for how much impact that'll have?
I'm optimistic that it's not going to have too much of an impact. I think it's the exponential growth will hopefully continue. There is good savings to be had for industry and for just the general user around fuel consumption and charging. Using
Even with
EVs,
road user taxes coming in, you think that'll be kept in balance, so that it definitely tips in that direction.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's the cheapest way to drive 100 k's at the moment. I think it's
unless you're driving a bicycle.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I think
then you'd take the electric bicycle route anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. So I think it's around $5 to charge at home. It's around $15, I think, on the high-powered network, and around $18 if you're filling up with petrol. So, it is a lot cheaper. So I'm hoping that those government sort of initiatives that they've removed won't play too much of a part. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I guess we just have to see it. It does seem to me like there's a fair bit of momentum now, and once a family starts moving down that electric track, it does, it seems to be that they don't go back in most cases, right?
Yeah, I've recently moved into an electric vehicle. It's great. It's nice to drive. It's it's fantastic.
And there's a sort of technological benefit too, isn't there? With the newest vehicles, particularly the EVs, there seems to be that extra, leaning into more of a technology, capability. Of course, any new vehicle is a more capable, entertainment systems and capabilities than something from a decade or so ago, and depending on those sort of steps you're making, it can make a big difference. Although I had some interesting experiences in Australia recently, and I hired a BYD. And interestingly, it was with Sixt, SIXT, the rental company, and they seem to have brought up a big fleet of the BYD EVs. They've got some others as well, but maybe they bought too many because they were renting them out at a fraction of what their press release from earlier on in the year had said they were going to be renting them for. So it was that was virtually, or possibly even the cheapest car that was available to rent. So a little tip: if you want to try out an EV and you're going to Australia, that's one way of trying out an EV. Because I needed to rent a car anyway, and then the other thing that they do in Australia is they offer free charging. Although there was a little bit of a hiccup in that the key fob they gave me for the charging didn't work, and so I had to pay for it. And now I have to remember to actually send in the bill and get them to refund my charging.
Yeah, wow.
So it's something to be aware of. But Australia, I think, certainly behind New Zealand. It's another area where we're a bit further ahead.
Yeah.
I noticed the number of EVs on the road in Australia seems to be dramatically lower, certainly in Queensland, than what we see around Auckland.
Yeah, I think the government's really pushed it a lot more in New Zealand and Australia, given these initiatives and really trying to grow the market.
And look, there always had to be a point when the incentives drop off, right?
That's right.
I think it's probably just a debate over when was the right time, but what's happened has happened. So let's delve in a little bit into this situation with Ferries, where Singer has been working. Tell us about what you're doing on that front. Where's this happening? How many ferries are involved, and does it even make sense to electrify ferries? There's probably a few areas we can tap into, but that's at the top of my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I guess first it totally makes sense to electrify. The ferries they're around 6% of the public transport usage, but they're responsible for around 20% of the public transport emissions.
Okay. Oh, that's quite a big deal then.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Auckland Transport, they bought, I think it's 7 electric or electric hybrid ferries. And we've been working with them since 2021, partnered with ABB, like I mentioned. And so we've just been working through that. The ferries relatively large, so they're 300 passengers, which is around double the capacity of what's currently on the network. So it's a great initiative that Auckland Transport are doing.
Yeah, that's quite a significant upgrade. Moving to the bigger vessels. That's very, very helpful. I think it'll be appreciated. I used to catch a ferry to work quite some time ago. But if you're in sort of a location, certainly around Auckland, we've got a few of those scenarios, especially Waiheke. That's a big commute, something that we have to cater to, and if it can be done with an electric vehicle, with an electric ferry, that's really cool. How do you deal with that sort of challenge of they use a lot of power, right? And I guess it's that reality that it's a shorter journey and you can get bursts of charging in through the day that makes it possible.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a charging set. It's a 3.3 megawatt charging set.
3.3 megawatts. So that's more than sort of 10 times those hyperchargers we were talking about before. So that I guess gives an idea of the sort of scale of battery. And how long do they get sort of they're able to be plugged in, because you're not able to do a full charge from between one ride and the next, are you?
No, that's right. So it'll be around 10 minutes we'll charge, which will be the equivalent of 25 average homes that they use in a day. So they'll get a burst of energy for 10 minutes.
So 10 minutes of that charge is the equivalent of 25 houses over a full day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Or 450 cars being charged as well. So quite large. So it gets a bit of a top up and it goes on its way. And throughout the day, it'll slowly go down and then it'll be fully charged overnight. So that's the whole idea around it at the moment.
Yeah. Wow. And when we look at getting this, the charging infrastructure out for, whether it's for, Tesla chargers, any of these sort of high speed ones, it seems to be, many months sort of process to make it happen. And there's all sorts of, complexities. I think we've seen, Tesla, for instance, I don't know when they first announced that they were going to have their infrastructure available within Tauranga, and I don't think they've delivered it yet. I'm not there a lot, but it's one of those things of when's it going to happen. Some of these things are complexities with the locations and leases and coming to those sort of arrangements. We've seen that with councils and private entities that they've negotiated with. But part of it is being able to get the juice there, the power there off the national grid and to get that sort of thing run. Now, when you're dealing with the electricity for a charger at that level for a ferry, how difficult is that? Is that something that, because everyone's behind it, it's quite quick and easy to get it happening, or is it a pretty drawn out process?
It's definitely some challenges and a drawn out process. Yeah, Victor are behind it as well to upgrade their side of the network coming in, and so it is quite a complicated process. It's not just straightforward, connected and you're away.
It's not just running an extension cord across from Queen Street down to where the ferries are. Then
no, we'll be running a new feed back to the substation and at the end of Key Street there. Yeah, so there'll be a new 22 kV line coming in.
Is this kind of digging up the road and things like that?
They will be
a chunk of work, right?
Yeah, I mean there is some spare ducts and stuff in the road, but that's Auckland Transport and Victor are on that sort of side of the installation. We're more on the from the LV side on.
LV?
The low voltage side. Yeah. So that'll be.
You take in their power and then you're putting it in a manner that's going to be able to be received by the electric ferry.
Yeah, and so we sort of have a defined footprint that we've been allocated, and so we need to make sure that the equipment can fit into that that footprint, and that's across different footprints in different areas. So we're working through the ferry terminal at the moment, downtown ferry terminal. So there's going to be it's going to look pretty nice. It's going to be functional and
yeah, that's cool. Now. Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier, around these different sort of connectors and standards and things have got a lot, simpler. When it comes to plugging in cars, we've gone to standards. Although even that there's been a moving target, I suppose. Just in North America, we've seen the industry, the industry globally in terms of how their vehicles are going to be charged that are sold into. United States, sort of, I guess, first and foremost, where we had I guess the US sort of version of I think it's the sort of Type 2 charging that sort of seemed to be what all the manufacturers were going with, other than Tesla, and Tesla, were arguing, well, our connector's smaller and better, and why wouldn't you use it? And, they went so far as to sort of, open source everything and then rename their connector somewhat presumptively as the North American Charging Standard.
Yeah.
But obviously that we look now that's playing out pretty well. The whole industry, I'm not sure there's any major player. I think actually now that the last major player has come on board over.
Yeah, that's right.
Over a period of, what is it? It must be, maybe it's 12 months or so now. But a period where they just sort of fell like dominoes, and pretty much everyone has sort of settled on moving to their connector, and arguably maybe the rest of the world would benefit as well, because theirs is a smaller and simpler connector. I don't know. We got different standards in different countries now, which brings some complexity, but it's a lot better than. I think you were telling me before the show, maybe something like 20 different ways of
That's right.
connections from an electric vehicle standard. So we're streets ahead of that. So
Yeah, there's
that's
so
pretty
many
good.
out there, and
Yeah.
there's 5 major types
Yeah.
in different regions around the globe.
Yeah.
That's where this megawatt charging system that we're putting in for the ferry will be really good, because it's an initiative, 300 plus players of global industry for that sort of the 1 megawatt and above charging.
Okay, so
and they're trying to.
so they are coming together. We don't expect it to be one plug that we're going to have to throw all this gear out in 6 months because there's a new standard.
That's right. Yeah, so it'll be consolidated. So they're all using the same plug.
Yeah, okay.
So you can bring something from North America to say New Zealand and still be able to charge that. So
that's an important consideration, isn't it? Because boats travel a lot more than cars do in terms of internationally.
Yep. So and as well as the trucks and high powered sort of heavy industry equipment as well that will be utilising this, because you've got large battery capacity. They need to have this megawatt charging system, or else it'll take hours and hours to charge the equipment, and an industry that's just not feasible. So that's where all the industry's coming together and trying to put that through and agree on the different standards. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of moving parts that they need to put together. But yeah, there is some projects globally that are running at the moment as a prototype. So the expectation, I think, was start of 24. So it's slightly moving to get all that agreement globally, but it is coming along.
Oh, I hope that plays out well. Yeah, we've certainly seen the electrification of buses pretty heavily, around varying parts of New Zealand, and trucking has been moving in that direction, to a degree for a while. I guess these sort of megawatt plus charging is still probably very small in terms of a percentage at the moment, but getting that standardized for the future, really important. It's really pleasing to hear that those things are being addressed. And when you talk about these sort of investments, you don't really want to be having to mess around with so many different different options. Now, one of the questions that often sort of comes up is, as a country, have we got the power infrastructure to be able to cope with the electrification, of both our personal vehicles, passenger, transport that's privately owned, through to public transport and commercial, transportation needs. What can you tell us about that in terms of your knowledge? Because obviously that's pretty important to Singer's business. If there's not the capacity, you've got to be prodding governments and the varying companies to invest back into that area and increase our capacity. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we do have enough capacity. I think if all passenger or light vehicle were converted to electric, it'd be about a 20% increase on the current loads, which we have capacity to deal with that. And there's more, especially renewable projects coming online all the time.
Is it a matter of kind of picking the times of when things are charged? How much does that play into it? Because if everyone's charging at once and it's, I don't know, middle of summer when everyone's air conditioning's running, or it's middle of winter and everyone's sort of home heating's on or something. I mean, there are peak times, right, where it would be a problem.
That's right, yeah. So you want to be putting in a smart charger so that you can set the time, or have a load management system to be able to look at the loads. But yeah, you want to be able to charge off peak, really, so that you can take advantage of the lower rates, and also to have less burden on the infrastructure.
Yeah. And I guess we look back through history, 100 years ago or so, there were parts of, lots of parts of the world where there wasn't electricity. I remember, talking to my dad around the village he grew up in England, and when he was growing up, they didn't have electricity, running into their house. And I'm thinking, how can that have happened? That it was 150 years ago, but he's not 150. So, there's in recent times we've had a lot of areas go from no no connection to a grid to being fully connected to really massive
Yeah.
capabilities. And of course, we're very fortunate in New Zealand that such a high percentage of that is being drawn from renewable sources, which is pretty
right.
unusual globally. Sort of that percentage, isn't
I
it?
think we're fourth best in the OECD, around that, so around 87%. And you look at the history of load management, I suppose, in New Zealand. You've got the Ripple relay, which used to control the hot water cylinders. So we're just trying to move that more into a smarter kind of a way with controlling loads through smart chargers, really.
Right. So the Ripple relay, sort of back in the day, I'm not sure if it still sort of runs now. That was their ability to sort of effectively, send a message through the power grid for sort of turning on and off of hot water
Water loads.
cylinders. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
So that it's more heating on off-peak times.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Sort of innovative use of technology for its time, and now we've got to use the current innovations.
Yeah.
Oh, that's been really really fascinating. Sort of delving in, Peter. Anything else that we've missed that you think people might be curious about?
I just suppose some of the challenges around it is educating people in the new industry. It's not just a matter of buying a car and you can plug it in anywhere. So really, it's about assessing the infrastructure and understanding clients' needs. Around the utilization, how you're going to charge it, your load management. There's all these different complex questions that need to be asked and need to be solved. So yeah, it's all about tailoring that solution to that individual requirement.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big consideration that people need to be.
Yeah, I
taking.
guess important not to make assumptions around what's going to be possible in a given location or a given building, and planning ahead and getting the right sort of things in place. Yeah, I saw the building that I think's been built for New Zealand Post in Mount Roskill on the site of where foodstuffs used to be located. And they've got a very nice string of EV chargers there. That was one of the first things to go in before the building was even fully complete. Was I think a line of 20 electric vehicle chargers. Most of them probably down more around that sort of 7 kilowatt or 7 to 11 sort of kilowatt type type range, but also some chunkier, faster charging.
Beautiful.
Which it's obviously something that is important to really be considered and planned for now with these investments going into future buildings and locations and how to retrofit the existing locations.
That's right. Yeah, whether it's sort of distance charging or destination charging when you say got a truck that's going intercity, or whether you've got the van going from the depot to individual sites within the suburb. Different requirements require different size charges.
And it looks like there's maybe even some work that the IRD needs to go into, because I was talking to an accountant around sort of different rules for certain commercial vehicles can be taken home without there being sort of fringe benefit tax. But normal vehicle, if you sort of take it home, then it can trigger that. But there are businesses where the best place for them to charge their electric vehicles is for somebody to take the vehicle home, and to charge that and to bring it back charged the next day, because they don't necessarily have the capability at their location to charge those vehicles. So yeah, another thing that needs to be addressed with the changes. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming in. Really great to have you on the show, Peter Allington. And yeah, we'll look forward to delving in, I'm sure, more to this topic in the future. How far off from what you what you know, what's been announced in terms of when we're going to have the charging in place and have these electric ferries moving around the place. What's sort of the timeline on getting them all in place?
So it's we're looking at having the ferries and the chargers delivered and installed by the end of this year for one of the sites in Half Moon Bay.
Yep.
And then passengers are expected in 2025. A lot of testing and, all that, but it's looking like passengers 2025.
Yep. Oh, it's good to see, this work increasing around New Zealand, and look forward to the quieter and less sort of smoky ferry journeys in the future.
Should be a nice ride.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on the New Zealand Tech Podcast. Also, this week we had a news episode, which Peter joined on as well. So make sure you've caught both episodes in New Zealand Tech Podcast. And thank you, of course, to our show partners, to Gorilla Technology, HP, Spark, 2 Degrees, and 1NZ. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next week on the next episode. See ya.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.